Li Jizhou crossed a different world and exerted all his strength, but his body was covered in bruises and bruises. In the end, the lower-grade spirit root failed to attack the golden pill, causing his body to die and his soul to dissipate. It was not until the second awakening of Su Hui that he realized that the reason why he was able to cross this realm was actually the reincarnation treasure he had accidentally obtained. The Reincarnation Mirror not only allows one's soul to reincarnate, but also nourishes this life with past life and enhances talent. So, Li Jizhou began the steady path of accumulating spiritual roots for the next generation. This book focuses on health preservation and cultivation, with a focus on stability. It emphasizes a peaceful mind and is suitable for readers with a peaceful mind. Keywords of the novel. I save spiritual roots for the next generation without a pop-up window. I save spiritual roots for the next generation. Download the complete set of TXT, and read the latest chapters of the next generation's spiritual roots. 1. Chapter 1. Inverted Hanging Mountain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Inverted Hanging Mountain. Amidst the misty clouds, a towering mountain gradually reveals its true appearance from a distance of thousands of miles. Unlike ordinary mountains, it is upside down. It seems like someone has uprooted that big mountain and then planted it upside down at its tip. Remember, the flying boat of the sect only stays for 1 hour. Say goodbye to your family as soon as possible, no time waits. Jia, the elder, stared at the inverted hanging mountain that had been seen countless times and said calmly as he raced towards it. I will strictly abide by the elder's orders. On the deck of the flying boat, there were a total of 20.9 teenagers sitting cross-legged, but only 4 of them answered with fists in their arms. Among the other 25 people, some instinctively wanted to answer with fists, but suddenly woke up and reluctantly put down their hands. Most of them looked dejected and unsure of their future. They are all eligible immortal seedlings who underwent preliminary testing by Yuanying sect 3 days ago in the Hanging Mountain and have cultivation qualifications. After 3 days of detailed assessment, only 4 people were honored to become disciples of Yuanying sect, and from then on, the road ahead was smooth and the immortal path was prosperous. You don't have to despair either. The great road is 50, and the heavens extend 4 or 9. People can escape from it, and everything has a glimmer of vitality. Before joining our Yuanying sect, one can still practice. Whether it is a casual practice or joining a family of cultivators, one can look ahead to the path of immortality. Elder Jia felt the emotional instability of the teenagers who did not pass the assessment and casually comforted them. Later, as he looked towards the increasingly close inverted mountain, he added, just like the Mo Li Daozun 2,000 years ago. The title of Daozun entered my ears, and a group of young people woke up like a dream. With a sweep of gloom, their eyes lit up suddenly. Only Li Jizhou, who had a beautiful appearance and temperament in the crowd, smiled lightly and shook his head slightly. A self-made person among billions of people is bound to become the idol and hope of countless white people. This also conforms to the above intention, so as not to give rise to despairing evil thoughts. He persevered and persevered with this glimmer of hope before and after his travels in his previous life. In this life, just during the 3rd round of the core examination of the Yuanying sect, he awakened his previous wisdom and finally realized. A towering building rises from the ground. Without the foundation laid by our ancestors, without exceptional talent, we cannot face ourselves squarely, do not know how to steadily accumulate, and set our sights high. Those who dream of reaching the sky in one step are bound by their own cocoons. Brotherly, Elder Jia is right. Don't be discouraged. It's not a blessing to have a bad luck. Perhaps it's a good thing that you haven't entered the Yuanying sect. The 3rd level spiritual pulse of the Hanging Mountain is not inferior to our sect. You have been intelligent and wise since childhood, although at least you can cultivate it. Perhaps next time we meet, we will all be calling each other good friends. A woman sitting in front of the crowd turned around to look at Li Jizhou, her voice warm and gentle. This woman's name is Lin Kaiwei. She has a beautiful appearance and a peaceful temperament. She is one of the 4 people who entered the Jinyang gate and also a childhood sweetheart of Li Jizhou. Li Jizhou smiled and nodded, "Thank you very much. The green plum has withered, and the bamboo horse is gradually fading away. Take it seriously, each one is safe." Although Lin Siwei's appearance and temperament are extraordinary, she is considered one of the top beautiful women in the vicinity, and she has almost made a lifelong pact with Li Jizhou. However, just after awakening Su Hui, all the fairy postures of those past life love entanglements have emerged, and the red-pink skeleton and beautiful woman are still in front of her. Before proving the truth, love is destined to never be touched again in this life. Naturally, she will not be moved by the subtle attitude change before and after entering the sect. Jizhou, don't give up on yourself. Kaiwei and I might come back to see you someday. If you let me know that you willingly fall, don't blame me for ignoring your face. Seeing Lin Kaiwei and Li Jizhou talking, the man next to Lin Kaiwei also turned his head and earnestly comforted him. "I remember what Brother Zhao said in my heart, thank you very much." Li Jizhou, without any idle burden, bowed and thanked the former Zhao Xiandi. Li Jizhou, as the local doll head of the inverted hanging mountain, received a lot of filial piety from him. However, this is all a thing of the past. Now that Zhao Qian has joined the Jinyang sect and is a mid-level spiritual root, with the help of his family, it is not surprising that he can easily build a foundation and have a promising future. "Li Jizhou, what are your plans?" Suddenly, someone behind him gave Li Jizhou a hard pat on the shoulder. "Go home," Li Jizhou said calmly without looking at the boy behind him. "Oh my God, Li Jizhou. What's wrong with you? You deserve to be my archenemy in this lifetime, just like you." Zhou Tsang cursed. This is a doll head from another faction that Li Jizhou has never dealt with since childhood, with extraordinary courage and lofty aspirations. "Zhou Tsang, be careful, this is on our sect's flying boat." Zhao Qianyu looked at Elder Jia in front of the flying boat and scolded with a calm face. Zhou Tsangdan was about to curse, but suddenly he held his breath and softened his tone, "I know. Everyone, ready." Just then, Elder Jia's calm voice came in. Quickly, the flying boat stopped at the city gate 800 miles in front of the upside-down mountain. Everyone looked up and saw the upside-down mountain piercing into the center of the city with its tip, forming a vast and misty circle of Feiyue Lake there. And on the upside-down mountain wall, 4 big characters shine brightly. "This place has no owner." However, everyone dared not look directly, and even Elder Jia had to shift his attention to the city gate after taking 3 breaths. There are 3 characters written at the entrance of the city. Inverted hanging mountain. However, beneath these 3 words, the 3 characters, Lei Yenzong, can be vaguely seen. "In an hour, gather here." After everyone got off the flying boat, Elder Jia reminded them again. "Brotherly, I'm running out of time and need to go home and say goodbye to my parents first." Lin Kaiwei said apologetically. "Yes, don't let the Immortal Master wait for a long time. You should go back first." Li Jizhou nodded in agreement. Watching 4 people enter the city gate, Zhou Tsang finally spat out a mouthful of thick phlegm. "Pooh. But I didn't say much." But instead, he walked up to Li Jizhou again and reached out to grab his shoulder. Li Jizhou naturally turned around, causing Zhou Tsang to grab an empty spot. "Hey, you're not really planning to go back, are you?" Zhou Tsang wasn't upset either. "I lack qualifications and have no support, so it's better to go home." "What does Brother Zhou want to do?" Li Jizhou asked with a smile. Zhou Tsang stared fixedly at Li Jizhou, then gritted his teeth and said, "My fate is determined by me, not by heaven." He said that if I lack qualifications, then I am insufficient. "Ha, I don't believe it." "Then you can also practice on the inverted hanging mountain. The 3rd level spiritual meridian here is not inferior to the 3 great gates." Li Jizhou smiled and said. "Pooh. Li Jizhou, I'll dig a hole in your heart with you. Are you pretending to be foolish with me?" Who doesn't know that the year of the Hanging Mountain Spirit Meridian is not as good as the year itself, and maybe it will become a second-level Spirit Meridian next year. Moreover, even if it is still a third-order spiritual pulse, there are hundreds of thousands of scattered cultivators living here. We can't even enter those core areas. With so many people dividing this spiritual pulse, it's not as good as some small families with first-order spiritual pulse. Zhou Tsang cursed angrily with a black face. At least it's safe. Li Jizhou said from the bottom of his heart. You. Zhou Tsang pointed angrily at Li Jizhou and finally snorted coldly, you don't deserve to be Zhou's lifelong enemy. After speaking, Zhou Tsang strode towards the outside of the city. Boss, where are you going? Several young boys who were playing well with Zhou Tsang asked loudly. Zhou Tsang didn't turn back, didn't stop, and as he walked, he raised his right hand, clenched his fist and raised it above his head, saying, the man is determined to leave the countryside. If he doesn't become famous, he will swear not to return it. Li Jizhou looked at Zhou Tsangzhong's back and wanted to laugh, but couldn't laugh. A man with great ambition cannot laugh. Outsiders have no right to laugh, after all, eating the fruit of oneself is not worth it to others. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Reincarnation Guide. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 2 Reincarnation Guide. Zhou Tsang left, and the rest of the people entered the city. Sending away several little brothers gathered around him, Li Jizhou politely declined the recruitment of the cultivator family along the way. With a dejected expression, he returned to his own small home located at the easternmost edge of the inverted hanging mountain. This is the inheritance left to him by his father, who has been practicing for a lifetime. It is a side house located in a small courtyard in a poor area on the edge of the inverted hanging mountain. He is just one of the 3 owners of the small courtyard with 3 rooms. Entering his own room, Li Jizhou activated the protective array his father had once arranged, and his face was swept away with disappointment and even a hint of a smile. Reincarnation Guide. Silently recite, realizing the invasion of darkness in the sea. Shaoqing, in the pitch-black sea of consciousness, a precious mirror gradually revealed its true appearance. The golden light overflowed on the mirror, and upon closer inspection, a handsome young man holding an alchemy furnace was engraved on it. Is this my previous life? Li Jizhou secretly expressed surprise. He closed his eyes and recalled a scene on the 3rd carrying assessment platform of Jinyang sect this morning. To be honest, although Li Jizhou's detected spiritual roots were only inferior and superior, his divine soul surpassed many others. If it weren't for the awakening of Su Hui in his previous life, he would definitely have passed the final assessment and successfully entered the Jinyang sect. The will of heaven is deceiving people. Although he now knows that he is carrying a golden finger, Li Jizhou still regrets not being able to enter the sect. Especially after awakening Su Hui from his past life and watching his turbulent, struggling, and desperate life like a fleeting light, it made him realize the cruelty and reality of cultivating immortals in this world. Wealth and land are indispensable. Especially in this realm of spiritual cultivation, except for areas with spiritual veins, there is not even the most basic spiritual energy for cultivation in other places, and the spiritual vein areas are mostly occupied by sects or cultivation families. In his past life, Li Jizhou originally lived on Earth, from the initial hard work to the final lying flat and lying down, and finally by chance, he crossed to this cultivation world called Tianxian continent. At the beginning of his journey, Li Jizhou thought he would be the protagonist of this world, and from then on, he rose against the sky, invincible in the world, and decisive for eternity. Especially after being rejected by many sects and ridiculed by some, he firmly believes that he is the type of protagonist who has lived in the East and West for 30 years. Whenever he heard that there might be a secret realm or treasure somewhere, he rushed over immediately, always thinking that it was a chance prepared for him. The result is self-evident. Not only did he not encounter any adventures, but he often suffered serious injuries and was on the brink of death, to the point where his foundation was damaged. In the end, he harbored hatred and had no hope of forming a pill, leading to a tragic death. Looking back on my past life, I was poor and destitute, lacking talent, resources, and connections. I had a lofty heart. If it weren't for a sudden repentance, realizing my own ordinariness, dedicating myself to alchemy, and accumulating some resources for myself, it would have been impossible to build a foundation. Looking back at his past life experiences again, Jizhou let out a deep sigh. Fortunately, I have this secret treasure that allows me to live another life. Otherwise, I would have been the most miserable traveler. Jizhou was deeply touched by the unbearable experiences of his past life. However, taking a quick look at others' lives did not have a negative impact on Jizhou's character. It did not make him become an old monster who had lived for hundreds of years. It only allowed him to recognize reality, his own ordinariness, and make his future years more stable. After carefully reminiscing about his past life, Jizhou once again looked at the treasure trove of reincarnation in the sea of consciousness. Next to the golden mirror of the past life, another precious mirror appeared. However, this precious mirror has no golden light, and there is no portrait engraved on it. This precious mirror should correspond to this world. It should only be fully illuminated after the end of this life. I don't know how many times the reincarnation treasure can allow me to reincarnate. Is it the reincarnation of 3 lifetimes or 9 lifetimes, or infinite reincarnation? It shouldn't just reincarnate for 2 lifetimes, at worst there will be a 3rd life. Jizhou no longer thought much and consciously clicked on the first mirror. Some information suddenly appears. Survival time in previous life. 218 years. Gain 218 spiritual root points. In the later stages of building foundations in previous lives, the divine consciousness and soul cultivation speed increased by 5%. Previous life alchemy skill. Level 2 intermediate, this life alchemy proficiency increases by 10%. This is the greatest benefit of the reincarnation treasure, which can nourish the talent of the afterlife. The spiritual root points obtained in previous lives have not been added to this life, but the speed of divine souls is innate. No wonder the spirit of this life is much stronger than those around me, it turns out to have a 5% bonus. Jizhou clicks on this world's treasure mirror again. Spirit root. Gold, 6/10 inferior, wood, 31/100 inferior, water, 7/10 inferior, fire, 67/100 inferior, earth, 2/10 inferior. Divine soul. Spiritual awareness, 25 out of 100, plus 5%, cannot add points. Allocated points. 218, this spiritual root system in the cultivation world is complete with all 5 elements. Any human race, with all living beings, is born with all 5 elements. The evaluation of spiritual root qualifications is based on the highest level of spiritual root's induction of heaven and earth spiritual energy. Poor quality spiritual roots have a sensitivity to spiritual energy that is difficult to bring into the body for a lifetime. In Jizhou's previous life, all the gold, water, and soil were inferior, with the wood spirit root below and the fire spirit root above. Therefore, the overall spiritual root level above and below is considered the average level of the general cultivators in a small cultivation kingdom. Coincidentally corresponds to the spiritual root data reflected by the treasure mirror at this moment. It seems that the spiritual roots that allow me to reincarnate are all inherited from my past life. In terms of spirit and soul, the chi refining stage is all the spiritual consciousness stage. Jizhou has just completed the process of introducing qi into his body in this life. At this stage, a normal person has just touched the threshold of spiritual consciousness, while Jizhou has already accumulated spiritual consciousness. It should be due to the 5% divine soul warming speed boost in the previous life. Even if you add all the points to the highest sensitivity of the fire-type spiritual root in this life, it is only a medium-level asset. If there is support from a sect or family, there is a chance to form a pill. As for the Yuanying, you must have an opportunity to go against the heavens, just now. After passing the qualification test of Jinyang sect, if you add the qualification and then go to other sects for testing, you may be targeted by those with intentions. This amazing secret of significantly increasing your talent in the short term is enough to make Yuanying level monsters give up their face. After all, there are only a few sects within the territory of Qi, and there are many exchanges between them. Moreover, Xinmi, who carries the treasure of reincarnation, cannot wander under the watchful eye of those major repairs. In fact, for oneself who has been blessed by a past life, it doesn't matter. If one cultivates casually, then they can cultivate casually. With the experience of building a solid foundation in their past life and being a second-level alchemist, they can operate steadily. However, in the early stages, it is a bit difficult, and later on, they will definitely be stronger than some external disciples of the sect. If one can form a pill, they can have nearly 500 years of longevity. In the next life, an additional 500 points will be added to the foundation of this life's spiritual roots, and the next life will be of high quality. In this cycle, as long as one can reincarnate for 3 more lifetimes, the natural soul body and heavenly spiritual roots can be easily obtained. There is hope for preaching. Avoid competition and struggle, operate steadily, be sure to accumulate elixirs, strive for the primordial baby. In this world, do your best to live long enough. Setting a goal for this world, Jizhou is preparing to add all 218 points to the fire spirit root. At this moment, a light spot below the reincarnation treasure trove caught Jizhou's attention. The highest level of martial arts obtained in a previous life. Complete Changchun skill, practice. I have gained many martial arts skills in my past life, and the most advanced one should be the top. Quality, Yan Ju. Changchun Gong. This is something that everyone can achieve. Jizhou was slightly taken aback. Changchun Gong is a basic martial art technique in this world, and is also known as the Friend of Sanshio, along with Open Source Classic and Golden Seal technique in this world. There are all over the street, anyone who wants to learn can do it. Changchun Gong is a wooden health cultivation technique that solidifies itself after absorbing spiritual energy at each stage, resulting in half a minute slower than general cultivation techniques. With the same qualifications as other ordinary cultivation techniques, 1 layer of qi is completed every year. Changchun Gong takes almost a year and a half to complete. Moreover, the Changchun magic it cultivates is notorious for being poor at attacking, with mediocre power. However, what is noteworthy is that in the same realm, the Changchun magic is rich and long-lasting, with a distant aura, making it the most suitable for drawing talismans. Therefore, most talismans will minor in Changchun Gong to assist in drawing talismans. Another point is its health preservation attribute, which increases the lifespan by 20% compared to general techniques in the same realm. Besides, unless absolutely necessary, no one is practicing this law. However, when Jizhou saw the word complete in front of Changchun Gong, he felt a glimmer of anticipation in his heart. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Yuanying's Promise. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Yuanying's Promise. With anticipation in mind, Jizhou touched upon complete Changchun Gong. Complete ancient martial arts, with more than double the strength and endurance of the same realm, increasing lifespan by more than 50%, and also nourishing divine souls. Looking at the introduction, Jizhou's thoughts surged. Have I ever obtained such a miraculous martial arts technique in my past life? Is it the Changchun Gong discovered together with that alchemy furnace? Upon careful reflection, he had indeed obtained a jade slip of martial arts in his past life. Initially, he was full of expectations, but found out that it was actually the Changchun Gong from the Rotten Street, so he didn't care anymore. Unexpectedly, it was a complete Changchun Gong, with its efficacy more than double that of ordinary Changchun Gong. That's it. At the moment when Li Jizhou saw the increase in longevity by more than 50%, he made up his mind directly. Originally, he was planning to directly cultivate the fire attribute, Yan Yan Ju, from his previous life, but now he has decided to major in this, complete Changchun skill. In this life, he has at most intermediate spiritual roots, and it is somewhat irrational to expect to attain immortality through preaching. It is better to lay a solid foundation and be more realistic for the next life. Since the Reincarnation Mirror uses the survival time of this life as the spiritual root point for the next life, so, living long is the main goal. As long as you live for a long time, you can accumulate more spiritual roots and add points to the next life. With a growth rate of over 50%, practicing Qi can lead to a lifespan of about 180 years. Building a foundation can lead to a life of 300 years. Once the pill is formed, there will be a long-lasting period of 800 years of time. The next life will have 800 spiritual root points, let alone live 300 years longer than the average alchemy cultivator. Perhaps there is hope for a primordial baby. Li Jizhou's mood couldn't help but stir slightly. The goal of this world has been slightly adjusted. Avoid competition and struggle, operate steadily, strive for excellence, live for 1,500 years first, and strive for the spiritual roots of the next life to start. No longer hesitating, start adding more points. Add the wood spirit root to the middle grade in one breath. Spirit root. Gold, 6/10 inferior, wood, 1/300 inferior, water, 7/10 inferior, fire, 67/100 inferior, earth, 2/10 inferior. Divine soul. Spiritual awareness, 25 out of 100, plus 5%. Allocated points. 149, the upper limit of 300 points for mid-range products. Li Jizhou hesitated slightly. If all the wood spiritual roots are added, it will not reach the top grade. After careful consideration, he added the fire spirit root to the medium grade. Alchemy relies on the fire spirit root, and having previous alchemy experience in this life can ensure a worry-free second-level alchemist. Moreover, with proficiency, it is not a problem to break through previous alchemy skills in the future and cannot be neglected. Then he elevated all the gold, water, and soil to the lower-level spiritual roots. In the end, all the remaining was added to Mulingzhen. Spirit root. Gold, 1/100 inferior, wood, 102/300 inferior, water, 1/100 inferior, fire, 1/300 inferior, earth, 1/100 inferior. Divine soul. Spiritual awareness, 25 out of 100, plus 5%. Allocated points. 0. The lower spiritual roots of both wood and fire, as well as the lower spiritual roots of gold, water, and soil, are considered moderate in the entire cultivation world of Qi. After finishing everything and carefully examining the reincarnation guidebook, there were no omissions. Li Jizhou's mind and spirit returned to unity, and he began to immerse himself in the contemplation and practice of the complete Changchun skill. It wasn't until the next afternoon that Li Jizhou woke up leisurely. In an instant, he had an illusion that he felt as if he had truly transformed into an ancient tree from Changchun, full of vitality and evergreen forever. Although there are many similarities in the initial methods and operational routes compared to the previously superficial Changchun Gong, the subtle details are evident in the true chapter. Just by comprehending the true solution of the Qi refining period once, one can already feel the infinite mystery. From this perspective, the Rotten Street version of Changchun Gong should be a remnant of the ancient scriptures. One day and night, he only comprehended the Qi refining technique of complete Changchun Gong once, and had greater expectations for this technique. He couldn't wait to start practicing it truly. Helplessly, he has only recently achieved complete Qi stimulation and has not yet entered the stage of Qi refining. He is not even considered a cultivator, so he naturally lacks the ability to clear valleys. Day and night of enlightenment, although relying on the strength of the divine soul and not feeling lethargic, the stomach cannot bear it. Turning over from the bed, Jizhou pulled out a pack of leftover lingmi from the hidden compartment under the bed, and had to face the financial constraints of reality. After eating this meal, there won't be another one. There is also fanmi in the inverted hanging mountain, which is very cheap. However, Jizhou has been eating lingmi since he was young. His father raised him when he was young. After his father's death, Jizhou became determined to practice and ran errands to exchange food for people in the city. In addition, the merchants in the inverted hanging mountain showed kindness and distributed relief. He stumbled all the way, but also came over. However, a month ago, in order to reserve for the assessment of Yang Zong, he cut off his income, and coupled with being over 16 years old, he can no longer receive the relief grain distributed by merchants. Now he is truly at the end of his rope. At least stronger than when I traveled through my past life, Jizhou chuckled to himself, recalling memories of his past life. The place where he traveled in his past life was also the Tianxian continent. According to the comparison of memories from 2 lifetimes, Jizhou can almost conclude that the Liang kingdom where he traveled in his past life is also one of the hundreds or even thousands of countries in the southern part of the eastern wilderness of the Tianxian continent. Within the territory of Liang state, there is only a second-level spiritual vein, which belongs to a small cultivation kingdom. 1 foundation-building sect and 1 foundation-building cultivation family dominate the area. And the country where this life is located is called Qi State. It was once ruled by Lei Yenzong, who had Yuanying Jinwu as its leader. In addition, there are now 3 large sects, Jinyang sect, Shini sect, and Cold Wind Valley, which have Jindanjinren as their seat. The 5 major immortal cultivation families under it all have at least Jindanjinren as their seat, and the Jianji family is even more numerous. A family of 1 sect, 3 sects, and 5 generations, with such strength, is enough to enter a medium-sized cultivation kingdom. I don't know how far Liang state is from Qi state. What is the timeline of past and present lives? If there is an opportunity in the future, I must go back and take a look. After all, there are still some relics left after my own death. Bang! At this moment, the gate outside the courtyard was knocked open by someone, and a chaotic sound of footsteps was getting closer and closer. Puff! Something fell directly at the entrance of the main room. Jizhou instinctively prepared to open the door and see what happened. But then suddenly calmed down, before awakening Su Hui, because she was born here and lived for too long, she gradually became numb. Moreover, she was not a cultivator and had little interest in others, so she did not have much safety considerations. But now, awakening Su Hui and comparing with the previous world of cultivation, I have a clear understanding of this place. This is within the territory of the Hanging Mountains, where the 3 major sects and 5 aristocratic families strictly prohibit disciples from taking half a step, leading to the escape of evil spirits and outsiders. It is chaotic and disorderly, with no supervision, mixed fish and dragons, and no rules and regulations. To live safely for a long time, one must be extremely cautious. He immediately got up, picked up a kitchen knife from the chopping board, and tiptoed to the crack in the door to look outside. Just through the crack in the door, I saw a woman in a blue shirt lying on the ground at the entrance of the main room. From her back, it looked very unfamiliar. Jizhou's eyes narrowed slightly. This small courtyard, located in the northeast corner of the inverted hanging mountain slum, was chaotic and unsupervised, so the residents had to rely on their own protective measures. Every household has its own restrictions on the main and small doors, and each resident can only enter and exit freely with a matching restriction symbol. However, these prohibitions are all simple prohibitive talismans and seals, which can be forcefully broken through with a single strike during the middle stage of qi cultivation. Fortunately, this place belongs to a slum area, and its spiritual energy is not as good as ordinary first-order spiritual channels, which is only slightly better than the ordinary world. Therefore, most of the interactions are with some destitute early-stage cultivators who practice qi. And those who can live here are all poor, and generally there are no conflicts of interest. This is also the reason why Li Jizhou has lived here for 16 years and has never seen any major events before. No, if she didn't have a forbidden symbol, she wouldn't have come in so easily. Gua gua, suddenly, Li Jizhou's small door was pushed open, and the crack in the door opened even wider. A basin-sized emerald green frog raised its head and eagerly looked at him, shouting twice. Quack! This is the spiritual pet of the ugly woman who lives in the main house of this small courtyard. Gua gua, the frog let out 2 more hurried calls and pointed out its tongue to the green-clothed woman lying there. Li Jizhou frowned slightly. Is that the ugly woman next door? Gua gua gua, the frog's call became even more urgent. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The Misfortune of Beauty. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The Misfortune of Beauty, Senior Chen. Someone was injured, could you come out and take a look? Li Jizhou shouted to the side room on the other side. At this time, the best way is to hold each one high, so that the sky can collapse and not crush oneself. There are 3 people living in the small courtyard. The main room is an ugly woman who is said to be the pinnacle of qi cultivation, specializing in animal defense. The right-leaning room is a sturdy man who does not cultivate skills and focuses on attacking and attacking. It seems that she is about to enter the later stage of qi cultivation, and can be considered as the combat power of the small courtyard. Unfortunately, Senior Chen takes on some dangerous missions all year round and is often not at home, nor is he currently. Gua gua gua, the frog screamed even more anxiously. Banging, and the next moment, the frog's tongue rolled into its mouth and surprisingly rolled out a storage bag, throwing it at Li Jizhou's feet. Li Jizhou looked at the frog in surprise, then at the woman in a blue shirt lying on the ground. It seems that this is exactly what that ugly woman looks like. For nearly a decade, I have been living here disguised as an ugly woman. I'm afraid there's a big story behind it. In addition to the low-level cultivators who cannot stand outside, there are also many cultivators hiding in the hanging mountain who hide from their enemies. Almost certain to be an ugly woman who shared the apartment for nearly a decade and occasionally provided him with some relief, Li Jizhou no longer hesitated. Step forward to check the situation of the woman in the green shirt. The heart has been stained with blood. Turning over, seeing the appearance of the woman in the green shirt, Li Jizhou instinctively paused. A face in his 20s, even though his eyes are now tightly closed and his face is colorless, still makes the word charming and charming appear at a glance. It feels like the next moment, those tightly closed peach blossom eyes will open and cast a seductive glance at him. Looking further down, she has a graceful figure, full but not fat, like a stunning beauty. Ugly women originally look like this. Since ancient times, beauty has been a disaster, and the cultivation world is even more severe. A cultivator is also a human being, with 7 emotions and 6 desires, as well as physical and mental distractions. And the woman in front of him seemed to be even more than many women that Li Jizhou had seen in his past life and later years of foundation building. So stunning that she has been constantly transformed into an ugly woman. It is estimated that it may be caused by beauty, so hide here. In order to avoid its true appearance being seen by others, Li Jizhou pulled a door curtain and completely wrapped the woman's head, then picked her up and walked out. Gua Gua was immediately overjoyed and jumped into the spiritual pet bag on the woman's body. Li Jizhou walked through the cramped and smelly alley with a woman who completely covered her appearance and was familiar with the way, and arrived at the entrance of a small courtyard not far away. Zheng Yaoshi, please help. This is Li Jizhou's frequent customer who helps him deliver medicine to others to earn running errands. With a soft sound, the gate restriction was lifted. Li Jizhou walked in holding the woman. Don't put it on my bed, you can't afford it if it gets dirty, said Zheng Yaoshi with a dark face, as if everyone owed him 1,000 or 800. Li Jizhou smirked and could only hold on to the woman for pharmacist Zheng to check her pulse. Zheng Yaoshi turned his head to one side in disgust, held his head high and closed his eyes, placing his hand on the woman's pulse. After 3 breaths, heart pulse broken, heart protecting pill, 20.6 liang of spiritual sand. As he spoke, Dr. Zheng had already taken out a jade bottle from his storage bag and poured out a black pill. He pinched the pill with 2 fingers and placed it on the mouth of the jade bottle, as if one more word from Jizhou would put it back in, giving him no chance to bargain. Ah! Jizhou helplessly took out the spiritual sand from the storage bag he had just vomited out. As he pulled out the spiritual sand, Jizhou suddenly lifted his head and looked at Zheng Yaoshi incredulously. The spiritual sand in the storage bag is not much, just 20.6 taels. So coincidental. At this moment, Jizhou instinctively held his breath. The lowest level storage bag comes with a dual restriction of divine sense and mana. The mana restriction of the storage bag in his hand has been broken, so he can take things from inside, but the divine sense restriction still exists. He just tried it with his spiritual sense. Divine sense restriction is a material characteristic of storage bags, and the lowest level can also prevent peak spiritual sense detection during training. The notorious stinky temper of Zheng Yaoshi, who hangs upside down in Shandong, is not specialized in cultivation, but in medical skills, indicating that one's cultivation has always been in the early stage of qi cultivation. Within 12 hours, using wooden magic to connect the heart meridian can live, but if left behind, one will die. Hurry up and leave. When Jizhou was slightly surprised, Zheng Yaoshi had already thrown the heart-protecting pill into his hand, and then chased the guests with a dark face. It wasn't until Jizhou walked out of the courtyard that he realized what Dr. Zheng had said. Where can I find someone who cultivates wooden martial arts? You better pray that I can cultivate the wooden Changchun magic as soon as possible. He was amazed by what had just happened. It was just a coincidence that Zheng Yaoshi wanted 20.6 liang of spiritual sand. He may have believed it before, but with memories from his past life, he could almost conclude that this old man was pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger. There are many things like this in the realm of cultivation, especially in the upside-down mountain, which is not surprising. Without further thought, he quickly returned holding the woman. Put the woman back into the ugly woman's room, stuffed the heart-protecting pill into her mouth, and quickly returned to her own room to activate the forbidden array. Whether or not we can save her depends on whether we can cultivate Changchun magic within 12 hours. At the same time, I also have a clear plan for the future in my heart. A gentleman does not stand under a dangerous wall. Inverted hanging mountain doesn't cost any money, anyone can come in, even if they find an unoccupied place to buy a house, no one will manage it, no taxes need to be paid, no one needs to show filial piety, and no one from the 3 sects and 5 aristocratic families will come in. However, similarly, no one has an obligation to protect your safety, and no one has an obligation to maintain order. This is a safe haven for the destitute and a refuge for the extremely wicked. But it is definitely not a place for people like Jizhou, who are steady in seeking survival, to live for a long time. However, in the short term, this is also an unavoidable matter. The inside of the upside-down mountain is chaotic and unowned, but because of the 4 characters engraved with great magic by Mo Li Daozuan on that upside-down mountain, everyone tried their best to restrain themselves when entering. Meanwhile, the 3,000-mile wilderness outside the upside-down mountain city became a true chaotic place because the law enforcement monks of the 3 sects and 5 aristocratic families did not come to inspect. Specialized in robbing families and houses, practicing magic skills, and of course, the most common is to disguise as the first 2 types of scattered cultivation. This doesn't even include some elusive monsters. So those who come out of the upside-down mountain are either powerful individuals, or groups of people who resist risks, or those who are poor and have nothing to gain, and lucky enough not to encounter monsters. Going out like Zhou Tsang, one can only pray that they have not encountered any demonic cultivators who practice magic skills, have not encountered any extremely hungry monsters, and have a certain ability to survive in the wild. It can be said that they have almost died. Li Jizhou's current strength means there is less than 10% chance of going out alive, and the risk is much greater than staying inside temporarily. And besides going out alive, you also need to have a certain reserve of spirit stones and the means to earn them in the long term. After all, no matter which secure immortal city dojo or neighborhood market you go to, there is a certain cost of living. Wherever there is spiritual pulse outside, it is a place where there is a master, and it is impossible to be prostituted for free. And almost all places without spiritual veins are spiritual barren lands, with scarce spiritual energy. If cultivators do not have elixirs such as chi tonifying pills to supplement spiritual energy or absorb spiritual energy from spiritual stones, they are at risk of falling cultivation if they stay in spiritual barren lands for a long time. After calming down, Li Jizhou boiled all the remaining bit of spiritual rice. In order to quickly cultivate Changchun magic, eating more spiritual rice to replenish spiritual energy is beneficial. Finally, the real step towards becoming a cultivator in this life has begun. The reason why Changchun Gong is rated as a friend of lower-level casual cultivators is not only because it is very easy to get started on, but also because it does not have a profound spiritual energy circulation circuit or need to reverse meridians. Instead, they all follow the meridians and flow with the flow, as if they are completely natural. The same goes for complete Changchun Gong at the beginning, except for some subtle aspects, the general approach is similar. Embracing the Yuan and guarding the Yi, following the heavens and responding to people, absorbing the essence of heaven and earth, and absorbing the qi of the 5 internal organs. As soon as the cultivation method was put into operation, Li Jizhou's body unconsciously merged with the spiritual energy of the surrounding heaven and earth. Unlike other cultivation methods that require active absorption of spiritual energy actively entered Li Jizhou's body through his pores, eventually gathering in the elixir field and refining into pure and rich Changchun magic. I don't know how long it took, but after running the Changchun technique for a week, Li Jizhou suddenly opened his eyes. He only felt his whole body filled with spiritual energy, and could no longer absorb any trace of spiritual energy into his body. As expected, it is similar to rumors. After Changchun Gong absorbs spiritual energy, it cannot be unloaded and requires a process of self-consolidation. This indeed slows down the cultivation speed, but I just felt that the speed of absorbing spiritual energy seems to be very fast, surpassing the higher order fire attribute techniques I have practiced in my previous life. Moreover, I am still in a place where the richness of spiritual energy is not as strong as the first order spiritual meridian. Perhaps this is the advantage of Zhongpin Lingzhen in this life. The middle and lower spiritual roots are like this. How terrifying was the speed at which the spiritual roots absorbed spiritual energy that day. Gua Gua. Li Jizhou had just finished his work when he heard Gua Gua repeatedly hitting his door with the prohibition. Suppressing the urge to stew it, Li Jizhou lifted the ban with a cold face. Gua Gua Gua. Gua Gua kept shouting, even sticking out his tongue to wrap around Li Jizhou's leg, trying to pull him towards the ugly woman's room. Glancing at the ugly woman's room, then looking out the window. The moon is bright and the stars are sparse, and it's already 3 shifts without realizing it. I wonder if my weak wooden magic can save you. Although he has just started practicing qi and can't even be considered a cultivator with just 1 layer of qi, at this moment, he sees himself as having Changchun magical power within the elixir field. You can give it a try. He returned to the ugly woman's room and clearly felt that the feminine aura on the bed was almost cut off. What Dr. Zheng said is true. By tomorrow, it will probably be tough. With previous life experience, Li Jizhou quickly skillfully infused the limited Changchun magic within the dantian into the woman's heart, and worked hard to guide the magic to continue the heart pulse. As the magic within the dantian was outputted, Li Jizhou clearly felt the swelling sensation of spiritual energy in his body gradually subside. He immediately observed the connection between dantian magic and the changes in spiritual energy within his body. When dantian mana is output, the consolidation of spiritual energy in the body significantly accelerates. After reaching this conclusion, Li Jizhou felt slightly pleased. The reason why Changchun Gong is slower than other cultivation methods is that the consolidation process after each practice is basically equivalent to the refining process. If the compaction process is doubled, the cultivation speed of Changchun Gong will not be slower than other martial arts. Thinking of this, his speed of outputting Dantian mana gradually accelerated. Changchun's magical power truly lives up to its reputation, rich and long-lasting. At the beginning of qi cultivation, the Changchun magic within the Dantian was no more than a cup, but it remained stable for an hour. Even the spiritual energy filled within the body is completely depleted. Activate the ban, take a break, and then run, complete Changchun skill, again. Until the sunrise rises in the east, the Dantian magic is once again abundant, and the spiritual energy in the body feels bloated again. So, Changchun Gong is not slow anymore. The speed of cultivation is the biggest weakness of Changchun Gong, but if one outputs mana in a timely manner after cultivation, it can accelerate the compaction process, which compensates for the weakness. However, for millions of years, I don't know how many cultivators have followed one after another. How could no one discover such a simple pattern? The only explanation is that the fragments of Changchun Gong do not have this effect, which is only present in complete Changchun Gong. Good. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Be careful and be kind. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Be careful and kind. Following the same method, until the afternoon, Li Jizhou continued his heart pulse twice for the woman in green clothes, which can be considered as saving her life. My own Changchun Gong also runs smoothly, which can be considered as a true beginner. Still a bit overworked. Li Jizhou returned to his room and activated the restriction, feeling physically and mentally exhausted. Fortunately, with Changchun magic in my body, I can barely resist the short-term hunger sensation. However, connecting the woman's heart meridian 3 times in a row has consumed a lot of spiritual energy. At this moment, her spirit is somewhat lethargic and she must sleep to recover. Without further thought, Li Jizhou fell asleep. Unexpectedly, I slept for 3 days and 3 nights. 3 days later in the evening, Li Jizhou woke up quietly, feeling energetic and full of magical power. Gua gua gua, the frog's cry rang out at the door in time. That woman should be alive, right? Li Jizhou opened the door and walked out. Gua gua immediately jumped up and down, indicating that Li Jizhou would follow it to the ugly woman's room. Li Jizhou glanced at the ugly woman's room and his eyes gradually narrowed. To repay kindness. Or, will we repay each other with kindness? However, with just a slight consideration, Li Jizhou smiled knowingly, then pretended to have a worried expression on his face and hurriedly followed him into the main room. If a woman wants to repay her kindness, she probably won't be able to do it until she wakes up. Moreover, after years of interaction, I have probably gained some understanding of the character of an ugly woman. The face is cold and the heart is hot. However, because I have seen the true nature of its disguise over the past decade, I am afraid there may be some clumsy threats. Senior, you're injured. Zheng, sure enough, Li Jizhou had just entered the room and was about to pay attention when a flying sword had already crossed his neck. Looking up, there was no figure of a woman in a blue shirt in the room, only the middle-aged ugly woman who had been cold-faced for over a decade was staring at her with an indifferent expression. However, Li Jizhou was not at all flustered, probably guessing that this woman was trying to put on airs. Senior Su. Are you back? He pretended not to know about the ugly woman's disguise and said in a tone that matched his current identity. Did you save someone? The ugly woman suddenly softened her tone and asked. Yes, the younger generation is just a small gesture, it's not worth mentioning. Li Jizhou, you are so brave that you dare to save my enemy. The ugly woman suddenly became furious. Li Jizhou felt speechless for a moment, imagining several reasons that the ugly woman might use, but the result was that the ugly woman used such a foolish reason to cover up the truth about her disguise. Jizhou lowered his head with a timely expression of anxiety and fear, glanced at him, and quickly explained, "Young generation. I don't know if that's the enemy of the senior generation, and I have been kind-hearted since I was young, and I really can't do anything to save you from death. Young generation. Humph, heart kindness. Do you know how many people will be killed by heart kindness in the cultivation world? Do you know how many unjust souls died due to that lowly person? You have contributed to the survival of this slut and the subsequent deaths due to her." Jizhou's eyelids twitched slightly, but he was a ruthless person. He cursed himself so harshly, just to increase his authenticity. "But quack it. Gua Gua is a beast. Whoever controls the spirit pet bag, it will consider who is the main one. Do you want to compare with it, Jizhou muttered inwardly, although he knew the ugly woman was putting on airs, his words were somewhat insulting and also insulting to the frog. Gua Gua let out two equally aggrieved cries. The ugly woman gave it a sudden glare. Gua Gua immediately covered her eyes with her claws and buried her head on the ground. Jizhou took a deep breath and said, "What the senior taught me was that I knew I was wrong. I will definitely not meddle in my own business in the future." "Humph, take it easy. If the news of you saving that slut spreads, I believe her enemies will thank you well." The ugly woman sneered again. "Please keep it a secret for me, senior. I don't want to die." Jizhou pretended to be panicked again. The corner of the ugly woman's mouth curved inexplicably, and then she shook her hand and threw over a storage bag, saying, "Don't dirty my bed with that slutty thing." Jizhou quickly grabbed the storage bag. It was the one he vomited out that night, but after paying 20.6 taels of spiritual sand that night, he didn't touch anything inside and threw it beside the woman in the green shirt. "Thank you very much, senior. Goodbye, junior." Jizhou turned around and walked out. A soft sneer echoed from behind, just enough for him to hear clearly. "Humph, to save that despicable person, you even specialized in practicing useless techniques like Changchun Gong. Destroying your own future, how foolish and pitiful." Jizhou paused slightly in his footsteps and hurriedly returned to his room with a face full of sweat. Immediately, he lifted the ban and a bitter smile appeared on his face. "At the moment I first saw the ugly woman, I was completely certain that the woman in the blue shirt that night was this ugly woman surnamed Su. He can also sense the Changchun magic within his body. As for Su Mei's secrets and the story behind her, Jizhou didn't even want to think about it. The cruelty of the spiritual world has already been experienced in previous lives. Those who can become cultivators are not fools, and many people also have their own secrets and unspeakable secrets. Curiosity is a talisman. If you want to live long, you still need to restrain your curiosity. You must improve your cultivation as soon as possible and earn spirit stones to leave here. The one with the strongest earning ability, no matter which world, is definitely power. In the cultivation world, strength is equal to power. So, the most important cultivators in the world of cultivation are those who strive to improve their own realm and combat techniques. But this path basically contradicts Jizhou's life goals. Where there is conflict, there is risk, and where there is instability. Moreover, Changchun's magical power is notorious for not being good at attacking and attacking. Beyond rights, there is commerce. However, there is a lot of involvement between buying and selling, and if there is no strength to protect it, it will ultimately only be making wedding clothes for others. After exclusion, cultivating immortality and various skills is Jizhou's best choice. Having rich experience in alchemy in the past and nurturing proficiency in alchemy in this life, it should have been like finding a fish in water. Unfortunately, in this realm of cultivation, each of the 5 elements of magic has its own role. To refine alchemy, one needs to have fire attribute magic to condense the elixir fire. In this life, the main focus is on Changchun Gong, but wood-type magic cannot condense the elixir fire. To refine alchemy, one must further cultivate a fire attribute skill to condense the elixir fire. Of course, if you are lucky enough to melt a certain type of heavenly and earthly fire, then you don't have to spend time and effort practicing fire-related techniques. However, no matter what happens afterwards, the path of alchemy is currently not feasible for Jizhou. How can one practice the second method again if their qi has not yet stabilized even when they first enter? An alchemy first requires a alchemy furnace, right? The cheapest alchemy furnace costs around 50 spirit stones. Moreover, even beginner-level alchemy materials are not cheap. In addition, although he has previous life experience and proficiency bonuses in this life, alchemy is easy to obtain. However, it is difficult for a skilled woman to cook without rice. Without condensed alchemy fire, he is powerless, and can only try it after the main cultivation level cultivates 3 layers of qi. Another point is that in this life, he wants to accumulate more skills for the next life. Not to mention anything else, there should be some exploration of the techniques at the forefront, such as Dan, Qi, Fu, Formation, Puppet and Imperial Beast. For others, they only have a lifetime, limited energy, and may be too greedy to chew. But for him to accumulate mature experience for the next life, it is not overwhelming with many skills. In this world, I specialize in wooden martial arts, and the most suitable one is still the talisman and seal script. Although the talisman and seal script cannot enhance one's cultivation and elevate one's realm like the alchemy path, but the key to victory lies in having both offense and defense, which is the second most powerful combat technique in the cultivation world after magical tools. It is also a consumable and often in short supply. The most important thing is that the early materials of talismans and seals are cheap, and the difficulty of getting started is small. In addition, there are ready-made talismans available for learning. Thinking of the talisman seal script, Jizhou couldn't help but recall the secret realm of his past life. At that time, no one expected that there would be a withered tomb of a 4th-level master of the golden elixir period in a small cultivation country like the Liang state. I don't know what the timeline of this life and the past life is like. Is there any possibility of planning for that dead tomb? With his mind set, Jizhou began planning to cultivate the art of talisman and seal script. After a moment, there was a conclusion in my heart. At this moment, he looked at the storage bag that Su Hui had thrown to him. I habitually scanned it with primary spiritual awareness, but naturally couldn't detect any abnormalities. However, the things inside made him slightly hesitant. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Deliberation and Fear. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Deliberation and Extreme Fear, by chance. Jizhou looked at a first-order primary rune pen, half-stack of primary rune paper, 2 first-order primary spiritual runes, 1 first-order primary dust removal rune, and a jade rune engraved with the word rune in the storage bag, and smiled slightly. Is this to repay my life-saving kindness? It's a gesture of gratitude. It has to be said that this is exactly what he needs now. Su Hui was thoughtful, but when Jizhou made the decision to start as a Fu master, he already had a better choice in his heart, so he couldn't use her kindness for the time being. At this moment, there was a knocking on the door outside the courtyard. "Boss, are you at home? Uncle Lin asked me to send you an invitation." It's Wu Daniu's voice. This also grew up together with Jizhou and Lin Kaiwei since childhood. 3 days ago, they were also rejected by the Jinyang sect along with Jizhou. Jizhou calmly walked out of the room and arrived at the entrance of the small courtyard. Compared to the disappointment of losing 3 days ago, Wu Daniu looks flushed with joy in his eyes. "Boss, Uncle Lin is hosting a banquet with the old neighbors tomorrow to celebrate the entry of Kaiwei's sister into the Jinyang sect. I have been specifically asked to send you an invitation, so that you must go tomorrow and have something to say to you." Jizhou took the invitation and said, "Okay, thank you very much. Boss, what are your plans for coming down? Wu Daniu hesitated for a moment and asked with some nervousness and anticipation. Have you made a decision? Li Jizhou asked with a smile. I can't hide anything from the boss, I have already agreed to the invitation from the Yang family in Qingshui, Wu Daniu said shyly, lowering his head. The Yang family in Qingshui River. Li Jizhou nodded slightly. As a native of the inverted hanging mountain, he has been exposed to some information about the cultivation world of qi since childhood. This Yang family in Qingshui is considered a third-rate immortal cultivation family relatively close to the inverted hanging mountain. Based on aquaculture such as captive breeding of spirit fish, it has a small reputation. However, a few years ago, something made them a laughing stock, and many cultivators would always chat and laugh after tea and dinner, which made them famous. The ancestor of the Yang family was caught by the head of the Yang family for dust removal. The truth of the matter has long been unknown, but the reputation of the Yang family has spread. It is said that since then, the revenue of the Yang family's spiritual fish has skyrocketed by 70%. The negative result is due to reputation, and most cultivators are not willing to marry into the Yang family, nor are they willing to marry women from the Yang family. In recent years, it is said that the number of Yang family cultivators has sharply decreased. Boss, I know the reputation of the Yang family is not good, but I know how much I weigh myself. I am helpless and have lower spiritual roots. If I can enter the Yang family, at least I have a wife, and Wu Daniu quickly explained. Li Jizhou raised his hand and interrupted him. Daniel, since you aspire to enter the path of immortality, why bother with his reputation? Entering the Yang family has resources and guarantees, which are beneficial for your cultivation and naturally a good thing. Boss, do you think the same? Wu Daniu seemed to have found his confidant. To be honest with my brother, I am also interested, but the path we have taken is different, so we can only give up. Li Jizhou patted Wu Daniu's shoulder and sighed. Joining the cultivation family provides stable resources and a stable dojo, making it relatively safe. However, the cultivator family is not foolish either, and it is impossible for them to do anything that is being prostituted for free. Sign a divine soul contract, some of which are family members from this lifetime and will never be obtained. Some have mating requirements, and after giving birth to many spiritual roots, one can retrieve their own life essence, blood, and soul cards. Of course, some canon fodder or offerings are excluded. Big brother, don't give up yet. Elder Yang heard me talk about your situation and he looks forward to you very much. As long as you nod, he promises to let you choose from among the legitimate women of the Yang family. Wu Daniu immediately exclaimed excitedly. Li Jizhou's innate divine spirit is stronger than that of ordinary people, which has always been a topic of much discussion for him, and it is also the root of his admiration from some familiar people since childhood. Daniel, if there's something good that you can think of me, I can't thank you enough. However, there's no need to mention this matter again. You can go ahead and focus on it. Li Jizhou didn't leave any expectations for him. Big brother. Daniel, it's already late and unsafe. Go back early. Li Jizhou remained unwavering. Ah. Wu Daniu left disappointed. Watching Wu Daniu, who was once the most loyal and honest in his small circle, leave, Li Jizhou looked at the invitation in his hand and smiled slightly. I haven't eaten for 4 days and 4 nights. I'll endure it tonight and have dinner tomorrow. One night passed quickly in practice. The next morning, Li Jizhou slowly finished his work, looked at the sky outside, got up to tidy up, and then carried a spiritual talisman from the storage bag given to him by Su Mei and went out. The edge of the eastern district is far from the center of the inverted hanging mountain, with a thin spiritual energy. It is also occupied by a large group of scattered practitioners at the bottom of the spiritual realm, especially those who have lived here in recent years, illegally buying houses and taking shortcuts, making the once somewhat orderly eastern district even more chaotic and cramped. The aisle is narrow and there is no sunlight all day long. In addition, some poor people are reluctant to buy even the Chengdu talisman and are too lazy to take their own filth out of the city and dump it, so they casually collapse at the entrance of the building, causing the living environment here to deteriorate. Before awakening Su Hui, Jizhou became accustomed to it. And now, passing through these places really makes him want to leave immediately. The alleys in the entire eastern district seem like a maze, and anyone who doesn't live here for a long time will get lost. Jizhou crossed left and right, and after half an hour, he finally walked out to the outermost street in the central area of the inverted hanging mountain. It's still early at this time, but both sides of the street have already been occupied by monks setting up stalls. There is no owner here, so there is no need to pay taxes. There is no gang formation here, so there is no need to show filial piety to anyone. There used to be occasional gangs here, but they didn't last long. Maybe one day when they came out to collect protection fees, they would encounter a big shot who hides his identity and cultivation, and turn around to kill him. After all, the Hanging Mountain is the biggest selling point in the entire qi cultivation world. Someone even killed someone outside the city and took the treasure, then turned around and went into the city to sell it. Jizhou walked onto the street, leisurely looking around. Although past life experiences have already confirmed that picking up leaks is only a very small probability, and even less than the probability of getting what one wants through hard work, this expectation cannot be truly restrained. As expected, I walked all the way without seeing any possibility. But his purpose here is not for that, he is here to sell talismans. Lin Qiaobei held a banquet to celebrate his daughter's acceptance as a disciple by Jinyang sect. He couldn't go empty-handed, after all, he still wanted to learn the art of talisman and seal script from him. How do you sell your first-level spiritual talismans? Jizhou asked when he saw a stall selling talismans and seals on the roadside. The vendor should be a low-level talisman, and the stalls are filled with similar techniques of talismans and seals. First-level beginners are the main focus, with a small number of first-level intermediate, and the quality is not very high, with the majority being inferior. And most of them are seal script for daily use. The most dust-dispelling talismans, followed by prohibition talismans, and a small amount of auxiliary fighting talismans in seal script, such as explosive talismans, cold wind talismans, and agility talismans. 15 liang of spirit sand, no bargaining. Where is the dispelling dust talisman? 10 liang of spiritual sand. Where are the prohibitions? Do you want to buy it or not? Sorry, I don't have enough spiritual sand to disturb you. Jizhou apologized and clenched his fists. After asking several street vendors again, Jizhou had a rough idea of the market price of talismans. Later, I inquired about the prices of talisman paper and spirit ink. Roughly estimate the profit of first-order primary seal script. If you are proficient in the art of seal script, the profit of retail and first-order basic seal script is 50% to 50%. However, due to the lower price of the first-level basic talisman seal, the profit is not very good. Working overtime for a month to make talismans only earns a profit of 3 to 5 inferior spirit stones. Later, he asked several booths specializing in recycling, and the recycling price was 30% lower than the retail price. Finally, he went to a shop specializing in the trading of talismans and seals. The retail price inside the store is 50% higher than that of the street stall, with a wide variety of products and superior quality. The recycling price is 30% higher than outside. In the end, Jizhou sold the spiritual talisman to a recycling stall and received 11 taels of spiritual sand. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Jinwu Immortal City. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7 Jinwu Immortal City. Returning from the outer periphery of the central region to the eastern region, it was already noon and Jizhou went straight to Lin Qiaobei's home, counting that the seats were about to open. As a first-class senior talisman, Lin Qiaobei originally had the financial ability to move to the market under the governance of the cultivation family outside, and even a few small immortal cities relying on their sex barely stood firm. Unfortunately, Zhang Kaifeng, a couple from the north road of the Lin dynasty, mistakenly entered the poison barrier swamp when hunting monsters in the Zhejiang mountains in his early years. The spiritual poison entered the bones and often required the use of a first-order advanced detoxification pill to dispel it. Over the years, almost all of the spiritual stones earned by the North Road's talismans were spent on it. When Li Jizhou was a child, he often heard his father exclaim that if Lin Qiaobei had not been like this, with Lin Qiaobei's talent and his talisman-making skills, he would have built a foundation long ago. Perhaps he had already become a somewhat famous second-level talisman master during the foundation building period. At that time, Li Jizhou was ignorant, unable to understand his father's size. He even admired Lin Qiaobei from the bottom of his heart for his loyalty and righteousness, thinking that he was his role model. When he grew up, he also wanted to be such a kind and righteous man. But now Li Jizhou smiled lightly and shook his head. Seeking benevolence leads to benevolence, as long as he never regrets it, it has nothing to do with others. Any choice made by a person has corresponding consequences. As long as he bears the consequences of his own choice, others have nothing to say. Big brother, you're here. Just as he walked to the entrance of Lin Qiaobei's courtyard, Wu Daniu happily welcomed him. Many people have already arrived in the courtyard, all from the surrounding neighborhoods. Lin Qiaobei and Zhang Kaifeng were praised by everyone for their high spirits. Jizhou, why are you so late? Come on. Wu Daniu's voice caught the attention of Lin Qiaobei and others. Lin Qiaobei walked forward with a smile and picked up Li Jizhou's hand. Uncle Lin and Aunt Zhang, congratulations. Sister Kaiwei has joined the Immortal sect this time and will surely dance for 9 days in the future. Li Jizhou said as he handed Zhang Kaifeng the ordinary gold and silver jewelry she had just spent 1 or 2 spiritual sands on in the market. Jizhou, are you still so different from us? Zhang Kaifeng smiled and took the jewelry. Alright, go sit down quickly, I'll find you later. Lin Qiaobei patted Li Jizhou's shoulder. Wu Daniu immediately welcomed him and led Li Jizhou to a table in front of him. Second elder, this is my elder brother Li Jizhou, who has almost reached the intermediate level of fire spirit root, and his divine soul is the strongest among us. Big brother, this is the second elder of our Yang family, specifically responsible for recruiting immortal seedlings for the family. Wu Daniu introduced the two of them. Jizhou has seen the senior. Li Jizhou clasped his fists and bowed. Not bad, indeed a talented person, sit down and say. Second elder Yang Yuanying looked at Li Jizhou with satisfaction and gestured for him to sit next to him. Xiao Li, you. You have already practiced qi. Did you practice Changchun Gong? Yang Yuanying was about to start soliciting when he suddenly sensed the magical aura emanating from Li Jizhou. At the beginning of qi cultivation, the Dantian magic is unstable and cannot be easily retracted and released, causing some overflow. Moreover, because Changchun Gong is a helpless choice for many lower-level cultivators, with a large number of practitioners, its magic attributes are relatively recognizable. Ah! Big brother, how do you practice Changchun Gong? That's the most useless. Wu Daniu also changed his color instantly. Yang Yuanying took a deep breath, regained his composure, and interrupted Wu Daniu, saying, Daniu, you can't speak without restraint. Since Li Xiaoyu has already practicing Qigong and has already started, you need to change your name. You will be called Dao Yu in the future. Second elder, that's agreed. Wu Daniu was a bit anxious. Hey, everyone has their own aspirations, don't force them. Alright, Daniel, yesterday I told you that as a cultivator, we can't just fight alone and work in isolation. We need to make more connections and exchange experiences. Let's go, and take advantage of today's Lin Daoyu banquet to make more connections. The second elder quickly blocked Wu Danyu's mouth and escorted him away. Li Jizhou remained indifferent, pretending not to notice Yang Yuanying's attitude. Sure enough, Changchun Gong is considered the lowest level of martial arts by everyone. A casual cultivator majoring in Changchun Gong has limited potential and is not worth attracting. Little friend, Daniel will stay with our Yang family for a long time in the future. If you have the opportunity, welcome to visit our Yang family. Based on your relationship with Daniel, you are a valued guest of our Yang family. Thank you for your kindness, senior. Li Jizhou replied with a smile. After Yang Yuanying finished speaking, he closed his eyes and regained his composure. Li Jizhou also had self-awareness, apologized and stood up to leave. Jizhou, come with me, I have something to say to you. Coincidentally, Lin Chaobei finished entertaining the guests and walked over to take Li Jizhou into the house. Uncle Lin. Sit down and say. Jizhou, we watched you grow up. Your father and I have worked together many times, but unfortunately. The world of cultivation is so cruel, where the weak prey on the weak, opportunities and risks coexist, and life and death are unpredictable. There is a constant crisis of life and death, especially here. Li Jizhou listened silently. Uncle has always had a wish to leave here, to go to the Immortal City, the Fengshe, and to places protected by the strong. That way, you won't have to keep your eyes open while sleeping, and you won't have to live in fear all day long, but Uncle has no ability, and has to endure here for decades. So I can only hope on Kai Wei, hoping that she won't repeat my old path and won't rot here for a lifetime. I believe your father treated you the same way, otherwise he wouldn't have worked so hard to accept the bounty or commission. Jizhou, this is not a place to stay for a long time, you shouldn't belong here. Lin Chaobei finished speaking with a long focus and looked seriously at Li Jizhou. Li Jizhou nodded and said, Uncle Lin's words are true. I have also considered this matter and hope to have the opportunity to leave. Okay, if you have this idea, it means you have really grown up. To be honest, Aunt Zhang and I are leaving. Lin Chaobei said with satisfaction. Oh. Upon hearing this, Li Jizhou couldn't help but feel a glimmer of anticipation. He only wanted to live a long life and naturally hoped to leave this chaotic place as soon as possible. Don't be surprised, we were able to leave here thanks to the light of Kai Wei. Jinyang sect will send a flying boat to pick us up to Jinwu Immortal City tomorrow and provide us with free accommodation. Lin Chaobei said with a happy expression on his face. Jinwu Immortal City. Li Jizhou's anticipation grew stronger in his eyes. Jinwu Immortal City is one of the top immortal cities in the Qi state under the control of Jinyang sect. It is located downstream of the third-level spiritual pulse of Jinyang sect, with abundant spiritual energy and guarded by several elders of Jinyang sect. It can be considered one of the safest gathering places for scattered cultivation in the Qi state. This is the place that Li Jizhou has been dreaming of in this life. Not bad, it's the Jinwu Immortal City where I used to be when I was young. Lin Chaobei chatted heartily and began to reminisce about the turbulent past. Li Jizhou listened silently and couldn't help but feel a wave of fascination. Until Lin Chaobei regained his senses, he smiled apologetically and said, hey, when I'm old, I love to reminisce about hardships and sweet memories. Stop talking about us, let's talk about you. Li Jizhou immediately sat up straight. Jizhou, we're leaving, you need to plan as soon as possible. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. One friend meets satisfaction. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. One friend meets satisfaction. Li Jizhou hesitated for a moment, then suddenly realized. How could you possibly take him away if he's not related? And if I really bring myself over, I can't afford the living expenses of the Immortal City now. I couldn't help but burst out laughing. blaming myself for wanting to get out of this chaotic place so much that I appeared innocent instead. Jizhou, the young family in Qingshui has been a family for nearly 300 years. The members of the family have a gentle and conservative temperament, and have a solid foundation. They are actually good matchmakers. Coincidentally, now that Kai Wei has joined the Jinyang divine sect, they will give me some thin noodles. If I don't help you build a bridge, will I? Lin Qiaobei continued. Uncle Lin, you have a heart, and Jizhou feels it in his heart. Li Jizhou smiled and thanked him. Hey, there's no need for that. This is also a gesture of goodwill from Kai Wei, as she has always treated you like a brother. Thank you, Sister Kai Wei, for me, Li Jizhou understood instantly. However, I understand your kindness, let's forget about this matter. Why? You don't like the young family. Jizhou, don't rush to decline. I have already informed the second elder of the young family in advance. If you join the young family, they will at least let you choose from the women with spiritual roots in the legitimate lineage. Moreover, as far as I know, the contemporary head of the young family is a daughter, stunning and beautiful, and even compared to Kai Wei, she will not be much inferior. You. Lin Qiaobei suddenly became a little anxious. Li Jizhou wanted to laugh a bit and waved his hand, saying, Uncle Lin misunderstood. I don't have a disdain for the young family, it's just that I'm currently focused on cultivation and don't want to waste my energy on relationships between men and women. This. Lin Qiaobei was a bit unsure of how to answer for a moment. Oh, Lao Lin, so you're here. What are you talking to Jizhou about? Just then, Zhang Kaifeng pushed the door in. Aunt Zhang, Li Jizhou stood up. It's nothing, didn't I think we were going to Jinwu Immortal City? I wanted to help Jizhou lead a line, but who knew that Jizhou didn't want a romantic relationship yet? Hee, come and persuade him. Lin Qiaobei seemed to grab a life-saving straw and looked at Zhang Kaifeng with a relaxed expression. Okay, you go and greet the guests first, and I'll talk to Jizhou. Zhang Kaifeng replaced Lin Qiaobei. Jizhou, sit down. After another round of heartfelt words, Li Jizhou remained indifferent. Zhang Kaifeng hesitated slightly before finally sighing and revealing her scar. Jizhou, do you know the situation between me and your Uncle Lin? Aunt Zhang and Uncle Lin have a great love for each other, they are role models for their spouses and our generation. Li Jizhou complimented them. Hey, to be honest with you, Uncle Lin has been dragged down by me in this lifetime. Otherwise, his future is limitless. Uncle Lin, back then. Let's keep the past and the past together. So, Jizhou, you must understand. In our cultivation, why is it important to find a Taoist couple? Taoist couples, seeking partners on the road, should have achieved mutual success and supported each other. If the people they are looking for have a significant difference in talent, temperament, realm, and future, it is a burden, not only detrimental to seeking the Tao, but also causing endless harm. So, Jizhou, you should find the right Taoist couple for you, and my family is picking roses. Seeing Zhang Kaifeng finally speak up on the core topic of today, Li Jizhou smiled slightly and said with great fear, Aunt Zhang, have you misunderstood? I have always regarded Kai Wei as my younger sister, and there is absolutely no delusion. Moreover, we are on a different path from Kai Wei, and I will not have any thoughts. Please rest assured. He had already noticed that the Lin Qiaobei couple specially invited him today to settle the cause and effect between themselves and Lin Kai Wei. After all, once upon a time, Li Jizhou was regarded by the neighbors as the most likely immortal seedling to be included by the Jinyang sect due to his powerful divine soul. Zhang Kaifeng had repeatedly matched Kai Wei and Li Jizhou. So it seems that Lin Qiaobei has finally regretted it. Do you really think so? Zhang Kaifeng was somewhat untrue. Absolutely. Li Jizhou said solemnly again. Okay, Jizhou, you are indeed extraordinary. You are a good child who judges the situation. Do you have any needs? Don't worry, if you can meet them, we will definitely meet them. Zhang Kaifeng was overjoyed. How was it? How was your conversation with Jizhou? Lin Qiaobei pushed open the door perfectly. I just said that Jizhou is a good child who understands propriety. As expected, hurry up. Jizhou sent me so many good things today, and we also need to reciprocate. Zhang Kaifeng said happily. Upon hearing this, Lin Qiaobei smiled happily and immediately took out 3 spirit stones the size of quail eggs from his storage bag, handing them to Li Jizhou. Jizhou, take it. This is our intention. Li Jizhou did not refuse. Thank you, Uncle Lin. This is something I borrowed from you, and I will definitely try to repay it 100 times in the future. Hi, I've seen it outside. What other needs do you have? You can bring them up, Zhang Kaifeng continued. Li Jizhou immediately stood up and bowed solemnly to Lin Qiaobei, saying, My nephew wants to learn talisman seal script. Can Uncle Lin succeed? Although there were jade talismans in the storage bag given by Su Mei, which should be talismans and seal script techniques such as the true interpretation of talismans, Li Jizhou refused to touch the things she gave unless absolutely necessary. In the realm of cultivation, people have ulterior motives, and methods are constantly emerging. Su Mei's identity is mysterious, and Li Jizhou does not want to be involved in many causes and effects with her. Are you studying Fu and seal script? The Yang family mainly focuses on spiritual fish and aquatic products, and has their own ancestral skills. What are you doing studying Fu and seal script for? Lin Qiaobei said. Uncle Lin, you misunderstood. I won't go to the Yang family. I need to learn talisman and seal script to stand on my own. Li Jizhou said calmly, and then his Dantian magic power was slightly released. If you don't go to the Yang family, you. Hiss, Changchun magic. Why did you major in Changchun Gong? You're mistaken. Lin Qiaobei majored in the metal intermediate level martial arts and minored in Changchun Gong, with talismans, so when he had a slight induction, he immediately called out to break the martial arts practiced by Li Jizhou. You have completed Changchun Gong. Zhang Kaifeng was also surprised. Lin Qiaobei and his wife exchanged a glance and immediately understood the reason why Li Jizhou had been emphasizing not to go to the Yang family. Now Li Jizhou has majored in Changchun Gong. With his qualifications, it is difficult to build a foundation, and he has basically cut off his path to immortality. If he wants to transfer to other martial arts, he must obtain a scattered power pill. However, before building a foundation, scattered power may damage his spiritual roots. No matter how you look at it, Li Jizhou has lost his investment value. Hey, you. If you want to learn the art of talisman and seal script, I will pass it on to you. However, a basic level of talisman and seal script is not worth any money. In addition, your major is Changchun Gong, and your cultivation progress is slow, so is your divine soul. However, improving the skills of talisman and seal script requires a high level of divine soul. Based on your situation, it may be difficult to improve your talisman and seal script skills, so even if I pass on your seal script skills, it may still be difficult to make a living. And we will be leaving this place tomorrow, so we won't have time to condense the jade slips. I'm afraid this matter won't satisfy you. Lin Qiaobei sighed and shook his head. Li Jizhou also let out a sigh. The immortal way is ruthless, human emotions are warm and cold, and that's how it is. However, he was not very disappointed either. After all, he had no expectations and was just trying to fight for it a bit. It's just that, let's go out and have a banquet. Lin Qiaobei felt that there was no need to say anything more and beckoned Li Jizhou to go out. Jizhou, those 3 spirit stones are even the friendship between our 2 families that we have had for many years. You don't have to think about returning them. From now on, the mountains and rivers will be long, and there may not be a day to meet. I only hope that you will have peace and less hardships for the rest of your life. Zhang Kaifeng thought for a moment and summarized the cause and effect between the two families. Li Jizhou understood her meaning and immediately clenched his fists, saying, "The friendship between the elders will be remembered by the younger generation. When we meet again on the immortal road in the future, we will be satisfied with just a few words of friendship." So, great. At night, Li Jizhou, who had a full meal and had been indulging in 3 spirit stones for free, returned to his room with a calm mindset. At this point, we can only take out the jade talisman from the storage bag. Indeed, it is a first-order sealed script inheritance. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Annual Practice. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Annual Practice. Lin Chaobei and his wife walked with endless scenery. Wu Daniu left with a hint of regret. With a wide range of skills, especially in the beginner stage, Li Jizhou quickly became proficient in talisman and seal script with his previous experience in practicing alchemy and the blessing of divine souls higher than his peers. I took some time to go to the street market and sold some talismans and seals from the storage bag given by Su Mei. I also bought some spiritual rice, talisman paper, and ink from the 3 spirit stones facing north by Jiulin, and started the day of residential practice. Su Mei in the main room lived in seclusion, and Li Jizhou happened to not have to meet her in person. Only Guagua occasionally knocked on his door, but he ignored them all. So, a year passed by leisurely. Li Jizhou finally achieved a perfect level of qi training. It can be considered a true cultivator. This speed is not slow, but it is not fast either. After all, he is currently a mid-level spiritual root. Even if he practices the mid-level martial arts of the previous life, he can complete 1 layer of qi cultivation in August without any problem. Half a year ago, Su Mei went out and has not returned yet. Senior Chen from across the street only comes back every 2 to 3 months and will soon leave again. Most of the time, Li Jizhou is alone in this small courtyard. He is also so happy. Half a year ago, he finally drew his first complete talisman seal in his life, an entry-level condensed divine talisman of the first level and lower level, and sold 5 taels of spiritual sand. Later, he discovered that after practicing Changchun Gong, drawing talismans during the compaction stage is also equivalent to quickly releasing the spiritual energy filled in the body, which can improve the speed of cultivation. During the year, he went out almost every 3 months. Collect some basic survival essentials and sell some talismans and seals. It is worth mentioning that although 1 year's qi cultivation is successful, the progress of spiritual growth is remarkable. Now that 1 level of qi cultivation has been achieved, spiritual awareness is comparable to the middle stage of qi cultivation. In addition, the complete Changchun magic is already more powerful and long-lasting than the Changchun magic on the Rotten Street. This gives him more experience in making talismans and a longer duration of making talismans than his peers in the same realm. In the long run, it is just around the corner to become an advanced intermediate-level talisman master. He is still satisfied with such a peaceful life of cultivation compared to the days of displacement and blood-licking in his previous life. Only 2 are a bit uneasy. Firstly, after practicing, I realized that in the eastern region at the edge of the upside-down mountain, although the spiritual energy can be compared to a first-order spiritual pulse, there are too many scattered practices at the bottom of the cultivation. After the spiritual energy is divided and consumed, firstly, it is thinner than the true first-order spiritual pulse, and secondly, it is often unstable. And he always feels that if his cultivation of complete Changchun skill can reach the true first-level spiritual pulse concentration, the progress may be even faster. Secondly, after becoming a monk, he increasingly felt the insecurity of this place. I went out 3 times, and each time I could feel countless scattered meditation sessions exploring myself with various emotions. And 3 months ago, I went to the market and witnessed a fierce battle where both jade and stone were burned. A male monk was robbed, killed, and robbed of treasures on his way to the Hanging Mountain. Then he saw all the items of the Taoist priest at the street stall. The battle was imminent, and in the end, both fell. The desperate tactics of two mid-stage scattered cultivation techniques actually affected the 5 surrounding areas that were not timely during the initial stage of qi cultivation. A tragedy that ultimately resulted in 4 deaths and 3 serious injuries. He was already on guard against this. Not only did he take the time to pick up and practice the ordinary martial arts he had just learned in his previous life, but he also specifically learned several types of attack and defense talismans and seals, and restored 2 protective spells suitable for his current cultivation level in his previous life to prevent accidents. It's still a bit weak. Changchun's magical power is not good at attacking and attacking. When the same amount of magical power is used to release spells, its power is not as strong as 80% when practicing fire attribute techniques in previous lives. However, there are also advantages. In previous lifetimes, the fire-based technique can be used up to 5 times in the same realm, while Changchun's magic can be used at least 8 times after slowly finishing his work. Li Jizhou got up and moved his body. Now that one layer of qi cultivation is complete, it can be considered as the first small stage of a cultivator, which requires a review and understanding, and then planning for future events. Strange, what exactly was that feeling a few days ago? It never appeared in my previous life when I successfully practiced a layer of qi. These days, Li Jizhou has been unable to let go of the strange feeling that flashed by a few days ago. That is not a state of enlightenment when practicing qi to perfection, nor has it caused any subsequent impact for the time being. But that elusive feeling, Li Jizhou admitted that he had absolutely not sensed it wrong. In the end, there was nothing to be gained, so I had to put it aside for now. A few days later, Li Jizhou went to the market for the 4th time and sold the talismans and seals made during this period. But this time, he didn't sell at the booth, but went to the store. The reason why I was selling at the stall before was to mix a few talismans from Su Hui's storage bag with those drawn on talismans paper, and sell them in small quantities. And now, all the talismans and seals in his hands were drawn by him himself. This time, the income has increased significantly. After purchasing enough spiritual rice and a small amount of spiritual meat for him to stay indoors for 6 months, he also left 2 spiritual stones. Half a year later, he unexpectedly received a letter. In this world, I have basically cut off causality with everyone. My father has already turned into dust, and Lin Qiaobei's family has set aside everything, Daniel. The only person he can think of in this world is Wu Daniu. Sure enough, unlocking the outer restriction of the messenger symbol reveals Wu Daniu's signature. You can see Wu Daniu's overflowing joy between the lines of the letter. The letter is mainly to report good news to Li Jizhou. A few days ago, Wu Daniu achieved a perfect level of qi cultivation, and on that day, his wife gave birth to a Qilin child, which was bestowed with a generous gift by the Yang family. However, at the beginning of the letter, I couldn't put it off. First, I cared about Li Jizhou, and then comforted him that there was no need for impatience in his practice. The progress of Changchun Gong was slow and well known to the world. I also invited him to come to the Yang family again, but this time I did not mention any unnecessary matters. I only mentioned that in addition to Yang family's spiritual fish farming, there has also been an experimental site for spiritual plant cultivation, which can introduce him to become a spiritual farmer. Several old acquaintances were also mentioned at the end of the letter. Wu Daniu said that the head of the Yang family instructed him to keep in touch with Lin Kaiwei. Having a Jinyang sect disciples network is a potential wealth. 6 months ago, Lin Kaiwei had already achieved a perfect level of qi cultivation and became a disciple of an elder of the Jinyang sect. Her future is limitless. In addition, Zhao Qian, who joined the Jinyang sect with Lin Kaiwei, had some bad things to do. It is said that during the assessment of Zhao Qian a year and a half ago, the Zhao family secretly sent gifts to the supervisor of the assessment of Jinyang zone. Afterwards, it was discovered that Zhao Qian is still a disciple of an external sect and is not qualified to practice the superior Liang Gong of the Jinyang sect. He only practiced the lower-level martial arts of the external sect, but also achieved a perfect level of qi cultivation a month ago. What surprised Li Jizhou the most was that Wu Daniu also mentioned Zhou Cang in his letter. Li Jizhou remembered the figure hanging upside down outside the mountain city gate a year and a half ago, which was always moving forward without looking back, and he was a little interested. Unfortunately, Wu Daniu didn't mention much. Just 3 months ago, when he accompanied his family elders to the surrounding market, he saw Zhou Cang following an old man from a distance and called out, but Zhou Cang ignored him. Finally, the family elders said that Zhou Cang had already practiced qi. At the end of the letter, Wu Daniu sincerely invited him to visit the Yang family whenever he had the opportunity. End of this chapter. 10. Chapter 10 Assessing the Situation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Assessing the Situation. Li Jizhou solemnly collected Wu Daniu's letter, but did not reply to it. The world of practice is constantly changing, and many things are beyond our control. In harsh environments, human nature becomes more variable. Moreover, Wu Daniu has devoted his life to the Yang family, and it is almost impossible for him to have any interaction with him. Leaving behind the most beautiful memories of each other is not a waste of getting to know each other. After receiving the letter, Li Jizhou attempted to operate Changchun Gong again. Still the same. Where exactly is the problem? In the past 6 months of cultivation, Li Jizhou felt a bit helpless. With the blessing of his previous life's cultivation experience, he should have been able to go smoothly. But this Changchun Gong is very different from the Yen Ju that I majored in my previous life. After completing a layer of qi cultivation, he did not make any changes, and as before, he diligently practiced while pouring out talismans. As a result, Dantian's magical power has never increased, and even now, his realm remains at the level of qi cultivation. Strangely, even though the realm remains unchanged, the Changchun magic poured out by each talisman is more long-lasting and appears more profound. The growth of divine souls is also very stable. He is not sure if it is a characteristic of complete Changchun Gong, but he is not in a hurry because although his realm has not yet risen, he can feel that Shouyuan is steadily increasing and floating in daily practice. Moreover, in the past 6 months, the skill of making talismans has become increasingly proficient. Now, drawing a first-level basic talisman seal script can basically ensure the yield rate. Li Jizhou, Pharmacist Zheng has something to talk to you about. Hurry up and go. Just then, someone outside the hospital shouted. Zheng Yaoshi. Li Jizhou frowned. For this kind of reclusive expert, he may have been very enthusiastic in his past life, and even regarded it as his own opportunity, putting in a lot of effort to blend in and strive for this opportunity. However, in this life, he only wants to stay away from this reclusive expert. But it's hard to escape from the sight, so you can only be careful and wait on it. Don't seek opportunities, just don't hold grudges against yourself. A moment later, Li Jizhou arrived at the entrance of Zheng Yaoshi Academy. 5 liang of spirit sand, take this person back from your yard and don't take up my space. As soon as he entered the door, Master Zheng threw 5 liang of spirit sand over. Li Jizhou saw a bloody man lying on the hospital bed, almost covered in bandages, with a face covered in wind blades and visible bones. But he still recognized this person at a glance. It is Senior Chen who lives across the street in his own courtyard. Li Jizhou took the lingsha and didn't say much. He nodded and picked up Qin Yuankong before returning. After returning to his own courtyard and putting Qin Yuankong back on his own bed, Li Jizhou returned to his room without any emotional fluctuations. Qin Yuankong has already reached the peak of the 6th level of qi cultivation, and may even have crossed the 7th level of qi cultivation. This kind of expert in the later stage of qi cultivation can almost be considered as an upper-level combat force in the slums of the upside-down mountain area. Moreover, he often takes on tasks of guarding commercial banks in the city, engaging in martial arts battles and life and death struggles, which is a common occurrence. This kind of cultivator has strong combat power. Similar to Li Jizhou's past life. However, looking at the entire upside-down mountain is not enough, and even wanting to walk out of it alone can be dangerous. After organizing the talismans and seals drawn over the past 6 months, Li Jizhou used 10 cold wind talismans, 20 blood dart talismans, 10 spiritual talismans, and 10 golden bell talismans as protective measures to leave the door and head straight to the market. In the past 6 months, due to Changchun's stronger and longer magical power, he has produced more than twice as many talismans as his peers. However, he is mainly used to protect himself, so the number of runes and seals sold is similar to 6 months ago. After purchasing the necessary items for life, there are only 5 spirit stones left. Adding the 2 spirit stones that were left over half a year ago, the value is as high as 7, and I have never been so wealthy in this life. He didn't hesitate to go to the inner city of the inverted hanging mountain and entered the hanging tower called Tianji Pavilion. The background of Tianji Pavilion is mysterious, and the organization is huge, claiming to be able to explore Tianji. It sells intelligence of various levels, including but not limited to certain forces, families, and individuals. They claim to the outside world that as long as you are willing to pay the price, they can collect various secrets of any target you want to inquire about. Regarding this, Li Jizhou remains non-committal. But he didn't come today to buy any confidential information, and he couldn't afford the cheapest information. This Taoist friend, do you need to purchase intelligence or something? Although Li Jizhou was dressed in a shabby way, he had a dignified demeanor and a calm expression. The female cultivator who received him did not neglect him. I don't buy intelligence, I want to inquire about the subscription of the residence newspaper, Li Jizhou replied with a smile. In addition to selling intelligence, Tianji Pavilion is also the largest mansion newspaper merchant. They classify and stamp jade slips on major and minor matters in the cultivation world for profit. Okay, our Tianji Pavilion newspaper is mainly classified by region and time limit. In terms of regional classification, we will take the inverted hanging mountain where our pavilion is located as the center and radiate thousands of miles outward as one level. A palace newspaper is a collection of anecdotes and miscellaneous stories hanging upside down in the mountains. The second-tier official report is a summary of anecdotes that have occurred thousands of miles away from the upside-down mountain. As for the time limit, there are daily reports, monthly reports, quarterly reports, annual reports. The receptionist nun introduced each one. Li Jizhou listened attentively. A grain of sand from the Times, falling on a person's head, is an unshakable mountain. In order to avoid such a small probability event from happening, one should not only be isolated, but also understand the trajectory of the times and try to avoid being caught up in the tide of the times. A truly powerful person is not someone who overturns against the wind, but always tries their best to ensure that they have a smooth sailing situation, be prepared for the unexpected, take precautions, and try not to fall into adversity. He is now living in a small courtyard, accumulating spiritual stones to leave the inverted hanging mountain and strengthen himself. Normally, it should be okay, but he is afraid of being surrounded by the general situation, and there are no complete eggs under the nest. Don't be swept by the flood before escaping the inverted hanging mountain, so you must pay attention to the surrounding situation. In the end, Li Jizhou chose a second-tier quarterly report based on his financial resources, with 4 spirit stones per year and a 1-time payment. After paying for the spirit stone, the nun handed Li Jizhou a jade talisman engraved with Tianji Pavilion. This jade talisman is an upgraded 1-way transmission talisman specially crafted by Tianji Pavilion. Every quarter, it will report anecdotes from the previous quarter within a radius of 10,000 miles. Li Daoyu, the content of the previous quarter's jade talisman is being given as a free gift for the first time. Please make sure to keep this jade talisman safe. If it is lost and reissued, an additional 4 spirit stones need to be paid. The female cultivator kindly reminds you. Thank you very much. Li Jizhou put away the jade talisman and thanked him before leaving. I didn't dare to stay in the inner city for a long time and immediately returned to the outer city. The inner city is mostly filled with cultivators in the later stages of qi cultivation, and even many experts in the foundation building period. In case of encountering the martial arts, even a small shrimp who has trained a layer of energy cannot escape. After returning to the outer city, he specifically passed by an escort agency in the street market. The main business of the escort agency is to bring people in and out of the hanging mountain, and one person needs to pay 5 spirit stones. At this moment, the door is deserted. Once upon a time, the escort agency business within the hanging mountain was very hot. After all, the chaotic area outside the city is enough to make those scattered cultivators in the early stages of qi cultivation pay such a price. And the former Huawei escort agency in front of me is the leader of the escort agency industry in the outer city area. Because it once achieved the reputation of having no negative reviews for 100 orders. One day, an old monk followed the clues to find his son. Only then did the Huawei escort agency steal and expose Xianmi, who was colluding with the bandits outside the city, to the public. End of this chapter.